Both Texas State and JMU need the win. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, we'll get to the App State ODU game, which we didn't do yesterday's episode. And then, college football, as if it wasn't out of control already, is way out of control. All right, and we'll see how long that last segment is. We may go on a big-time rant. Here we'll see how well I can control myself. All right. Big ball game tonight in the Sun Belt. JMU on the road at Texas State. JMU 6.5-point favorites. That seems like a lot. The reason is that Texas State is 0-3 in the Sun Belt. 3-4 overall, and JMU is really good defensively. Offensively, last time out, they were spectacular, right? Especially in that second half. But JMU's losses have been by 1 point to Arkansas State. They lost in overtime to Texas State, to Troy, and they lost in double overtime to Marshall. So their three losses are a combined 11 points. 3 losses, besides Arizona State. All right, I'm just talking about in the Sun Belt. So that seems kind of high, and we've all seen JMU not play that great on the road, right? I don't know how well you can do that against Louisville. That's really early in the season, although could have won that football game. If not, should have won that football game. They obviously did not play very well against Georgia State, but they did play well against a bad team in Liberty. Liberty's not that good, and they took care of business there. All right. This has got like the state of college football and everything going in it, right? Some people, conspiratorial, things going out there that, the Sun Belt is anti-Texas State, so maybe some calls are going against them, although I haven't seen anything specifically being said. Bob Chesney, going to be, at the time when they were winning, by the way, G.J. Kinney was out the door to either Arkansas or Oklahoma State. He doesn't seem to be either right now because they've lost 3 in a row. Bob Chesney's name being thrown around for Penn State. All right. So there's a lot going on with this ball game. And obviously, the only team I think that can get to the playoff right now is JMU. Southern Miss is undefeated in the Sun Belt, but they got 2 losses. One's to La Tech. It's not an awful loss, but that's not, a top 25 loss. And they did lose to Mississippi State, which is an awful. Mississippi State's much improved despite blowing that game to Texas this past weekend. But in all realistic fashion, you can't have 2 losses in the Sun Belt and go to the playoff. That's unrealistic. All right. You just, people think, JMU fans in my comments think they can't get to the playoff because they lost 1 ball game. If they'd beaten Louisville, they'd be undefeated, ranked, have moved up this whole, last 2 months and, would be maybe on the outside looking in, maybe 15th, 14th out of the top 12, but you keep on winning. And all of a sudden it's not that difficult to find yourself inside the top 12 because a lot of those top 12 teams are going to be playing each other. So this is a big ball game. So the question is, you got G.J. Kinney's offense, which is still pretty good, right? They took a 28-7 lead over Troy. They they scored 20 points in the fourth quarter. They lost Arkansas State because they missed an extra point. And then they missed the winning field goal, I believe, again, maybe that was Troy. And then they go into overtime and lose. They did make the game-tying field goal against Marshall to go into overtime, but they ended up losing that because they had to settle for a field goal in overtime. Okay. So you got G.J. Kinney's offense, the high-flying Texas State offense, versus that JMU defense. So that should be a really good battle. All right. Now, the question is, what offense do we get from JMU, right? That's going to be the big question. Is it going to be the 14-7 slog that we saw against Georgia State, or is it going to be, the 63 output that we saw against ODU? So you have right now, you got the number one scoring offense, 36.1 points a game, against the number one scoring defense, 15.6 points a game. I mean, that's a classic matchup, right? That's an absolutely classic matchup. The key, though, is maybe this. James Madison is fourth in the Sun Belt, 32.3 points a game, all right? Texas State, they're 11th, giving up 31.3. And now if I do it to conference stats only, then let's see what it does. Let's see if it's conference stats only. Let's see what happens there. Texas State is still scoring 36. James Madison's given up less, 14.5 points a game. All right. James Madison right behind Texas State in scoring 34 points a game in Sun Belt play. The 63 is going to help you, obviously. And Texas State is dead last in giving up 39.7 points a game in the Sun Belt. So, a couple of questions. Can JMU slow down GJ Kinney's offense, or the other way? Can GJ Kinney's offense put something up against JMU's defense? And how much can JMU's offense take advantage of Texas State's defense? Because that's where, it would seem to be they have the advantage is JMU's offense against Texas State's defense, right? Texas State's offense and JMU's defense are equal. They're both overall through all the games number one in the conference. That's not an advantage. Usually the defense tends to win out, but not necessarily the case, as we saw with Oklahoma and Ole Miss this past weekend. It did not win out. The offense won out. And so we shall see. But it's clear JMU as an offense, if they bring it and not play like they did against Georgia State, will have the advantage. All right. I'm going to take JMU to win. I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth, but I'm taking Texas State to cover. I think 6.5 points on the road is way too much. That's a ton on the road. And so technically, I guess I'm taking Texas State technically to cover the 6.5, but I'm taking JMU to win. I think JMU is just better. Then they get, so they've had 8-9 days off to get ready for this ball game. Right? I mean, let's see here. Sunday to Saturday is 7. Sunday is 8. Monday is 9. All right. So 9 days off. And then they're going to get it again. That's the other benefit, right? Texas State gets Marshall, which isn't a huge showdown, but that's not until November 8th. Because obviously they're not going to play on a short week this Saturday. Which is, the day after Halloween, which would be November 1st. So they get to enjoy this weekend off and get to get ready for Marshall next Saturday. All right. And I presume Marshall is playing this weekend. They are. They are playing. In fact, they are playing Thursday against Coastal Carolina on ESPN2. So again, that's a tricky ball game. We'll get to those later on in the week. So I'm going to take Texas State to cover, but JMU to win. All right. So Texas State will not lose by more than 6.5, although that's a tough. And the way overtime works, that's tough. But JMU will win the ball game. All right. All right, let's take a timeout. We'll talk a little ODU and App State. That may not be a very long segment because that last one probably is going to be, although that could be a whole 2-part series, really, if not 3-part series of the state of college football. All right, let's talk Monarchs and Mountaineers right after I tell you about FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything who will score next to the fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that last push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. How much am I willing to lose? Because if the Pelicans don't beat the Celtics on Monday night, they may not win a ball game. There's like Charlotte, and that's about it. Go look at that schedule. Can I do the money line against the Pelicans? Because if they upset somebody, then I'm out a little bit of cash. And the odds are not in my favor, except the Pelicans are going to lose. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. Let's get to ODU and App State. ODU does hang on in this one, 24-21, in a ball game that they were really in control on. J.J. Cole did not have a good ball game. Threw a bad interception, regardless what Southern Miss fans say. I threw it right into double coverage, and the defensive back cut it off. It was just a poor decision and a poor throw. Then they exacerbated, I say that word right, the situation. Kind of a tough play, although the commentator doing the former ball player doing the color commentating seemed to say, yeah, it was a targeting rule on Miles Farmer, although it kind of looked like you pushed him in the chest. Is that targeting now? That's what I saw, rather than putting that helmet on. Now, they did hit him in the chest when he was up in the air throwing. I'm not sure how much that's the defense fault, but okay. But next play, ODU and Colton Joseph hits on the big 70-yard touchdown play to Hargrove, catch and run, a little jump pass over the middle. Hargrove snuck out of the backfield, and he was off to the races, split the seams right down the middle. All right. ODU was in control of this ball game. They kept on missing field goals, and they were up 24-7. All right. In fact, they stopped App State. App State had basically, I don't want to say given up, but they went for it on fourth down and didn't get it, right? They had one set of downs. ODU goes for it on 4th and 2. Now, here's the thing. You're already up. I want to get where this was, because it was in the red zone, and they did make it, to be honest with you. All right. 4th and 2 at the App State 15. All right. So chip shot field goal, which they had missed. I don't think they'd missed a couple of field goals, not chip shots, but this would be a 32-yard field goal. All right. And I'm sitting there wondering, and you guys know I tend to like to go for it, although maybe sometimes the coaches need the points. You're already up 24-7. Obviously, a field goal makes it a 20-point game rather than a 21-point game. Maybe that's why Ricky Roddy went for it. But I guess somewhere along the way, the judge, my father, always said, when you get points to add to a lead, take the points, right? Just keep on putting points up, because it's tough to come back every time you score that they score. All right. And they hadn't done anything yet. Well, then they make a quarterback change. AJ Swan, who's had all those interception problems, like 7 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 3 against Southern Miss, all in the end zone. Or just right there at the goal line. He had been replaced. He was banged up and threw too many interceptions. J.J. Cole had come in and led the team to a couple of victories, and did blow the ball game against Coastal, although I'm not sure how much that's his fault. He led them on 2 long drives. They couldn't finish, so maybe it is his fault. In this case, they did kick field goals, and they needed touchdowns. So, again, talking out of both sides of my mouth, I'm very good at that. They did add points. But A.J. Swan gets a couple of touchdown drives, and again, Old Dominion, they had a 14-play, 70-yard drive that took up 6 minutes, and they were going to go up by 13 points. They missed a field goal. They actually recovered the ball. They missed a 39-yard field goal. All right, I'm sorry. In college, that's a chip shot. Anything 40 and within should be a chip shot. And they missed their share of field goals. That was one field goal. They missed another field goal at the end of the half, but I feel like that was long. That was 50 yards. I'm not sure I'm going to be all that upset about that one. Disappointing, sir. But I thought, and they missed one in the beginning of the second quarter from 47 yards out. So, I mean, they missed from 39, 47, and 50. I still would have taken the 32-yard field goal. All right. Nonetheless, ODU hangs on to win. All of a sudden, App State has lost a couple in a row. That's why those games that you should win hurt when you don't play particularly well to begin with and then come up on the short end. That's a problem. So App State's going to have a little bit of time. They get Georgia Southern, not this Thursday, but next Thursday. So that's going to be on national TV. That's pretty cool, right? That is 7:30 ESPN2. App State hosting a Georgia Southern. And could that be Clay Helton's last stand? I don't think so. But these teams are getting their money from somewhere. So we'll see. All right. $3 million. I understand that's not 53, but maybe it is to a place like Georgia Southern. All right. To buy out Clay Helton. And we're going to get to this state of college football. Apparently, LSU, one person is paying the majority of the buyout for LSU's Brian Kelly. One. I don't know what that means. Does that mean if it's, well, we'll just do an even number, 54. Does that mean it's he's paying 27 or he's paying 30 out of the, I don't know. Or does it mean he's paying like 45 out of the 54? I don't know. Or she, it could be, I don't know who it is. We'll get onto that. But again, that's next week's action. And meanwhile, ODU moves to 5-3, and they're 2-2 in the Sun Belt, and they're going to Monroe. They could get bowl eligible. All right. They were playing pretty well until the end, outside of the missed field goals. I mean, stats wise, let's see and it's going to look a little bit odd because App State didn't get any yardage really until the fourth quarter. Let's see what the team stats were. All right, 459 to 374, and just giving you those last two drives. I mean, they still count, right? But they went 91 yards after that interception, and they went 79 yards. So, I mean, that is 170 yards in the fourth quarter, down 24-7 when they had like 379 yards for the game. So they got a big 374 yards for the game. So they almost put up 200 yards on their last two drives, whereas ODU had 459. Both teams passed for about 300, but ODU was rushing for 154. ODU had one turnover, and App State had two. So, again, ODU kind of dominated this ball game more than that score would indicate, but still, you didn't convert the field goals, and you didn't quite put App State away the way I'm sure Ricky Ronnie and company would like. All right, but they still have a chance to go bowling up against ULM this weekend, as the case may be. All right, let's talk about the state of college football, because it does seem to be way out of control. These numbers are mind-boggling. We'll do that after I tell you about Game Time. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. Tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually, getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping out at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. The app made it super simple. I could even see the exact view from my seat before buying, and I love those zone deals. Pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Locked On College for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. All right, state of college football. All right, and mostly we're talking about these coaches. Right now, I guess I got this from the Athletic/New York Times. There's 14 job openings. 14. And I mean, you have some big time job openings: Penn State, Florida, LSU, UCLA, Arkansas, Oklahoma State, and Virginia Tech. And some lesser job openings. Stanford shouldn't be lesser than, because it could be great, but obviously, what a great institution of learning. Oregon State, Colorado State, UAB, and Kent State. All right. And we're not in November yet. Not in November yet, right? We haven't had Black Friday yet, either, figuratively for the shopping or for the day after the regular season when the guys get fired. All right. And so what they were talking about, right, this whole thing with Brian Kelly came down really fast. And remember that we get complaints that people don't like the NIL, they don't like the portal, right? These players are never sticking around for 3 or 4 years, right? All these guys are committed. Like Syracuse got a 5-star wide receiver. Let's see if he lands in Syracuse. All right. Let's see if he gets there. All right. With the quarterback play, he may not, but the good quarterback's coming back. So we'll see. Nonetheless. But it really all started with the coaches. I thoroughly believe that. When we went from coaches making a few $100,000 to 8 figures and almost 9 overall, it's outrageous. But we blame the players, who some just want to make a little bit of money. The Nussmeyers of the world who don't necessarily need the money, but if he's going to be offered getting $3 million, must be nice, right? And so LSU spent $18 million on their roster. That's insane. I'm not sure if Sunbelt handed out $18 million total to NIL. LSU's handing out $18 million, and we know they're not the only ones, and we know they may not be on the higher end of the list. Texas Tech may be double that or even more. And these coaches are making a ridiculous amount of money. James Franklin going to get, what was it, $48 million to go away. Brian Kelly's going to get $54 million to go away. And Matt Moscona on Locked On LSU was talking about the entire package, because he was talking to the people who write the checks. The entire package for this coaching change is going to be somewhere between 100 and 115. By the time you pay Brian Kelly and his staff, although it's mostly Brian Kelly, and you get the new staff in there, what are we talking about? Joel Klatt of Fox Sports thinks this job is going to pay $15 million a year. LSU. Are they going to do it again? Are you going to go play Dan Lanning $15 million and you're going to have the same mess again? I don't know. Well, I mean, you may not have the same mess again, but we just paid Brian Kelly $10 million a year, or I guess $9.5 million a year, whatever it is, and you're going to repeat the process? Whew. And so it is, the money is outrageous. Somewhere along the way, I always think the money is going to run out. And I think we said this before with the streaming coming into play. They just don't seem to run out of money. The money just seems to be ridiculous. And as I mentioned with John Hartwell, the former ULM AD, is that the colleges have not changed their business model. All right. They're just raising more money instead of cutting back on, say, coaches' salaries or AD salaries or administrative salaries. They're just going to you. They're just going to the public and say, we need more money. And so you don't think they're going to do that again? LSU is going to be bad next year. We don't know who their quarterback is going to be. All those guys are either going to graduate or go to the NFL. They are losing a bunch of players next year. Are they going to pay out another 18 to 20 million just to compete? And so what happens if Georgia Southern loses to App State? Are they going to be able to find $3 million to buy out Clay Helton? Then you got to come up with the money to pay the next coach. And these guys aren't making, lack of a better term, diddly poo anymore. Charles Huff is making, I think I saw $950,000 with Southern Miss. Bob Chesney was making over $700,000 in his first year, and apparently he's now making over $800,000 in his second year at JMU. And if they do move on, if Charles Huff gets the Arkansas job and Bob Chesney gets the Penn State job, they're each going to be at least making $5 million if Penn State's not paying 8 to 10. Arkansas could be paying 5 to 7. How do they say no? Although they probably are making more money than any one of them either dreamed about, right? I mean, what was Bob Chesney making a couple of years ago? He would have been lucky to be making $200,000 at Holy Cross, right? Maybe $100,000 at Holy Cross. Now he's making huge money at JMU, or much bigger money anyways, but that's not 8 to 10 million. And all these teams are going to hand it out. Florida, Penn State, LSU. And they all, by the way, they all think they're the best team. They're the best program in the country. They all think that. Arkansas doesn't. All right. The AD opened up his big mouth saying we can't win a national championship. Well, Arkansas fans don't want to hear that, right? John Neighbors, Lockdown Razorbacks, doesn't want to hear that. They'd like to compete every now and then for it, but obviously you got to do better what Sam Pittman did. All right. And these guys, the money being thrown around is insane. And so finally, a few years ago, the players said, we want to cut it. All right. And they deserve it because they're the ones who are doing the playing. All right. Well, you got to play for the front of the jersey, not the back of the jersey. Okay. There's some of that, of course, but we'll see who jumps at all these jobs because there's a lot of job openings. All right. And again, I will say this, and Mammoth's going to address it as well. It's not about the head coach per se. I mean, it is. That's who's getting fired. All right. But that's not who I feel bad for. Whatever head coach is being let go, Clay Helton's going to be taken care of. His family is going to be fine. All right. It's the other people who are maybe not the coordinators, but maybe the position coach or administrative assistants or whatever. People who are making mid 5-figure salaries or low 6-figure salaries who all of a sudden got to pick up and move. I mean, do they leave with their kids in school? I don't know where they would go. Where are they going? Do they got to go move in with the in-laws? I don't know. So that's where I feel bad. It's the administrative people who lose their jobs, sometimes they follow these coaches, regardless of where they go. And that's what I want to get to here. Because can you imagine Brian Kelly, who's done a pretty good job at LSU, got a Heisman Trophy winner out of Jaden Daniels. Bad defense that year, unfortunately. It's 34-14. He had a bad month. Lost his job. James Franklin played in the national semifinals last year. Had a bad 3 weeks. Lost his job. I understand, and these coaches understand by any means that's what the job is, okay? But it seems like the leash, because of the playoff, is less and less. Now, I think it's going to get to 16. I think it's still going to get to 16 here in a couple of years. And that's where I would cut it off. All right. I don't want 76 play. I don't want 76 in the national, in the NCAA basketball tournament. I was happy with 64. All right. I don't need, and I'm happy where it is now. Where is it? 68. I don't need any more than 16. All right. I think to me, that's perfect. But these coaches, they're going to start cutting corners again. If there's any corners to cut, I don't know what the NCAA is doing these days, but it's not going to be good. Because when you have to win immediately everywhere you go, that's not necessarily feasible. All right. Now there are coaches that do that. John Summerall's done that, right? He won at Tulane and won at Troy immediately. He picked up the ball where Willie Fritz left it off at Tulane, has won it immediately. Right now, Charles Huff is winning immediately at Southern Miss. All right, Bob Chesney, following Curt Cignetti's footsteps, continuing in that tradition. All right. Other places, it didn't go quite as smoothly. Right, huge outflux of players when Billy Napier took the job at Florida, either with him or elsewhere. And Des struggled, went 500, lost a bowl game. All right, for 2 years, then competed for a Sun Belt championship last year, and now has turned over the talent again, especially at quarterback. And so it gets tougher and tougher when we're really not on. I mean, these guys are signing a 10-year deal, but those assistants don't have 10-year deals. They have like 1 year or 2 year deals if they are lucky, and they get picked up after the year each year. I mean, someone is saying that after that punt return against LSU, Brian Kelly was caught on the sidelines telling the head football coach that play is going to get you fired. You're going to lose your job because of that play. Are we really doing that? So these coaches are taking these jobs, high-pressured, highly paid positions. And again, the head coach is separate because they're going to get their money. But it's going to be interesting. And I do want to hear from you guys, because it could just be me. I mean, obviously, if you're in this profession, you're trying to win a national championship. And you have better chances to do that at a Florida, Penn State, Oregon, LSU, rather than, say, a Georgia Tech or a Vanderbilt or an Ole Miss, although Ole Miss is going to probably be competing for a national championship this year. Lane Kiffin's going to get a raise, but does he leave and start all over again? Because there may be some better facilities at Florida. And are the facilities that much better at Florida? Because Florida was way behind on facilities. Like, they were one of the last teams to get an indoor facility because they were winning national championships without an indoor facility. So why make an indoor facility? That's just to get out of the rain and the heat. That's like the cheapest facility to build. And so, like, does a Brent Key stay at Georgia Tech, play for a playoff team, I don't know, once every 3 years, wins 8 to 10 games every year, and is not going anywhere? They ain't firing him if he's got one bad season. Probably. You play at Penn State, you play for you play for a chance to play in the national championship game, although he was there for over a decade. And you have a bad 3 weeks and you get fired. Now, the problem was, and there was probably some peer pressure in this, right? Curt Cignetti has more top 10 victories as the head coach of Indiana than in 2 years or a year and a half than James Franklin has at Penn State. Like, James Franklin's got 1 and Curt Cignetti's got at least 2. So there was, what are we doing type of deal, right? But again, these are not 4 or 5. I mean, they are 4, 5, and 10-year deals, right? But they're really about 3 years now, maybe 4. Napier got a 4th, and Brian Kelly got a 4th, but they were all in on this year because Nussmeier was coming back and Harold Perkins was coming back. And so it's going to be really interesting to see, because somewhere along the way, the money's going to run out. It doesn't run out with the corporations, all right? It's not going to run out with Fox and ESPN and CBS and Netflix and Amazon. That's not where the money's running out. But the person writing the check that apparently is going to cover most of Brian Kelly's buyout, how much money could they have? I mean, you got to think it. I mean, I guess if you're a billionaire, then you got it. But how many more times are you going to be willing to pay 45 of a $54 million check? And then you got to pay the $18 million for next year's payroll. Is the money going to run out there? That's why I think, just my personal thing, Lane Kiffin would be better off staying at Ole Miss. Because if they obviously they're showing they can compete for a national championship, right? Or playoff spot anyways. And if you do that every now and then with them, you can be all set. But if Florida starts missing the playoff on a regular basis, that coach is going to get fired. You start, again, almost playing the national championship game at Penn State, have a bad month, you're gone. That doesn't happen at some of these other schools. Now, maybe they change. I would be shocked if Clark Lee had a bad 3 weeks and he's gone at Vanderbilt, right? I think they're going to go to the playoff and see what happens there. Does he get a job? All right. I mean, I presume Vandy's got the money. That is actually, isn't that the one private school in that's the one private school in the SEC. So that's very different. We'll see how much money they can come up with. All right. It is Nashville. There are plenty of entertainers who've got some money in Nashville. Dirk Bentley was opening up on College Game Day. Get him to write a check. So I just think the state of college football is insane right now. And the least of the problems are the portal and the NIL. That is pocket change compared to what some of these coaches are going to do. Right? And every single one of these big-time coaches, unless somebody comes back, Urban Meyer, I mean, these Urban Meyer, Nick Saban things are hilarious if it happens. But all these coaches, like Lane Kiffin's going to get a big raise if he doesn't move on. Dan Lanning's going to get a big raise if he doesn't move on. If Brian Day wins another national championship, he could get a big raise. Who knows what happens? Maybe he goes pro. I don't know. I thought he was talking about going pro. It's just the money is an endless supply, it would seem. And again, the things that we care about, the portal and the NIL, just who's on our team, who we want to watch play and win, is, again, pocket change compared to what some of these coaches and what some of these schools have to put up just to get the coaches. I mean, if they're talking Lane Kiffin getting $15 million a year, is that for 10 years? Is it for 5 years? Is it for, I mean, that's a ridiculous amount of money. Joel Klatt said $15 million a year. I would be, I mean, I would personally start with John Summerall, but that's me. John's going to want a little bit of a raise too. So it's probably going to be somewhere in that $6 to $7 million range to begin with. But that's who I would start with. All right. And he had a good thing. They asked him about, again, his name being bandied about, and he had a good comeback. He's like, we talked about it in July with the kids. During the season, we're going to worry about the season. After the season, we'll worry about where we're going next year. All right. Let's just go have some fun and play football. All right. Also, I think John Summerall seems to be the kind of guy, if something does come up, he will address it with his players. But again, he's not taking the job now. None of these guys are taking the job now. They're all going to take it in December, but it is Jimmy Sexton season. If you don't know who that is, he's the agent that usually gets coaches big fat raises that weren't going anywhere to begin with. Someone calls Dan Lanning, shows LSU, see the 225 area code on my phone, goes right to Phil Knight and says, but what do you want? That's how it works. All right. Anyways, that was a rant. We will recap the JMU game for Wednesday. We will also look ahead to the Marshall. What is that? Yeah, it is Marshall and Coastal Carolina. We'll preview that for Thursday. I could keep this thing going with, USM's defense, lucky or good, but they don't stop. They want some sort of credit for causing the turnovers, and I don't care. All right. I think some of the turnovers, they have 19 turnovers. That's really impressive, right? In 8 games, 19 turnovers. They forced 4 fumbles. It's 15 interceptions. All right. The 2 interceptions the other day, they had one guy was chasing the quarterback, but he was rolling right anyways and threw it back across his body. Second interception was good coverage. The first interception was thrown into a sea of defenders. Again, I don't know why they care so much. Who gets credit for the turnover? You get the ball. You think the players care? I mean, the players want their own interception or fumble recovery, sure. But they don't care why the ball was thrown or why it was intercepted. They just care that it was, as am I. Southern Miss seems to care. Southern Miss fans seem to care because it doesn't end. All right. I don't really bring it up. They brought it. This is from the App State game. I have brought it up during this episode because I'm having some fun. But anyways, again, we probably won't do that. Maybe I will. I think that's funny. USM defense, good or lucky? I think it's good. And who cares if it's lucky? They seem to care. It is what it is. All right, this went long, 40 minutes. I knew that was going to be a big rant. Let me know what you guys think, because the money, and I know I was talking a lot of SEC there, But it does affect the Sun Belt coaches and, their families. And, if some people get let go, some people move on, we'll see what happens. All right. I mean, all of a sudden, Tim Beck is 4-3. He's 3-1 in the Sun Belt. That ball game is huge in the Sun Belt East. Huge. All right. Thanks very much for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Let me know what you think about the rant. Again, the money is just outrageous. It is out, and people just, it doesn't even seem to matter. $115 million for the old and new LSU coach, and that could be on the low end. Thanks for tuning in to a Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Enjoy Tuesday. Enjoy the game, and we'll have an update, halftime update. Although I'm not working Wednesday, so maybe I'll stay up for the whole game. All right, I have a day off on Wednesday. Either way, we'll recap it in a full episode for Wednesday morning. All right. Again, you've been watching Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Have a great Tuesday, everybody. We'll talk to you again on Wednesday.